Welcome to the program. I'm Lee Sales. It's almost 10 years since Australian David Hicks was captured in Afghanistan and handed over to US forces. But all this time later, the former Guantanamo Bay inmate is still embroiled in legal dramas. Today, the Supreme Court in Sydney froze a Hicks family trust containing earnings from the sales of his memoir after an application from the Commonwealth prosecutor. The DPP wants to seize Hicks's money, arguing the law prohibits him from profiting from his crimes. They're referring to his 2006 conviction on terrorism offences by an American military commission. But Hicks's lawyers and supporters have always argued that trial was a kangaroo court, the same argument they'll use this time around, as Connor Duffy reports.
David Hicks became the face of homegrown jihad, a young Australian who flew from Adelaide to Afghanistan to train with Al-Qaeda, even meeting the world's most hated terrorist. His capture, alleged torture, and 5.5 years in solitary confinement at the world's most notorious prison, Guantanamo Bay, made him a symbol of the excesses of the war on terror, with supporters rallying for his release. Today, David Hicks continues to polarise Australians.
David Hicks tells a story. He tells a story about being subject to abuse and torture.
One of the organisations I think he was involved in was Lectury Toiba. It's a proscribed organisation here. It is a terrorist organisation.
It was only in October last year that David Hicks broke his silence to give the public his version of events, releasing the book Guantanamo, My Journey.
He did it. I was proud of him today.
It's reportedly sold 30,000 copies, and now federal authorities have swooped to deny Hicks any financial reward from his own life story.
I would relish the opportunity if the government attempted to take my money, because it would mean for the very first time I get to go in front of a real judge in a real court.
The reason why we're going on Hicks, mate.
A small group of protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court, where it's alleged David Hicks's guilty plea to a US military commission on charges of providing material support to terrorism mean his book sales fall under the Proceeds of Crime Act. David Hicks wasn't in court, but unofficial family spokesman and former lawyer Stephen Kenny says the application will be fought.
It may have been an offence for an American citizen, but he wasn't an American citizen. We looked very carefully at whether or not David had committed any offence known to Australian law, either in Australia or internationally, and we could not find any crime that he had committed.
Hicks's supporters believe then Attorney General Philip Ruddock changed the proceeds of crime laws in 2007 with David Hicks in mind.
The Howard government certainly did, and there was a specific passage in that legislation that referred to military commissions because they weren't caught by the proceeds of crime, because they weren't really a recognised court.
The new Labor government repealed the reference to military commissions, but Hicks's legal team fears he may still be caught by the Act. The architect of the old 2007 laws says there's an important principle behind the DPP's case.
If you robbed a bank, you don't keep the proceeds. If you want to write a book about robbing a bank, you don't keep the proceeds. In my view, if you train with a terrorist organisation and you're convicted, it's an offence, and you ought not to be able to profit from it.
As well as disputing the legality of the US military trials, Hicks's legal defence will centre on the assertion his conviction came as a result of duress.
If you call torture, holding people in solitary confinement, what I would call unlawful imprisonment for 5 years, I think that's duress. I'm very sure that was duress. And David was keen to get out of there. He had to get out of there.
The point I would make is there's no duress. The fact is, in the United States, plea bargains have always been relevant. And you are entitled to plead guilty to a lesser offence in expectation that you might get a lesser penalty. Some might argue that if he'd been pursued fully, he could have been convicted of more serious offences.
The Hicks case has raised broader questions about the proceeds of crime laws, with claims profits from books and commentary by other convicted criminals are being left alone. The notorious criminal Mark Chopper Reed, corrupt detective Roger Rogerson and Melbourne lawyer Andrew Fraser, who was jailed for cocaine importation, have also published autobiographies and appear regularly in the media.
Does Andrew Fraser, the lawyer from Melbourne, does he have to account for his actions? I mean, he's written books. Have they gone for his assets? When we talk about the law, what do we mean? The tax law? Do we mean civil law? Do we mean criminal law?
The legislation under which the government have to bring this claim, the Commonwealth Proceeds of Crimes Act, is badly flawed, and I think the government will probably lose as a matter of law.
For now, Hicks's case has been adjourned until later this month, and when the legal manoeuvres resume inside, the political noise outside is sure to follow.
These proceedings are designed to silence dissent, are designed to stop an independent voice, someone telling their story about their experience under the war on terror.
Coffee reporting. Australian zoos are lobbying the federal parliament to ban imports of illegally logged timber from Southeast Asian jungles.